Welcome to the Rich Mind Podcast.
So we're going to probably ruffle some feathers with this one as far as like challenge some people's beliefs, challenge what people think, challenge some of those beliefs that we might have been fed as we're growing up. What are your thoughts on that, man? What do you think about this conversation we're about to have today?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be another fun conversation for sure. And yeah, like you said, there's kind of an old, I don't say old, but yeah, maybe an old rhetoric of, you have to go to college and, getting that education and that kind of thing. So yeah, we might, like you said, ruffle some feathers, but we also might open some eyes and open some minds as well. So that's kind of what we're here for.
That's exactly what we're here for. So the idea of just getting people to think a little differently, I think that's been one of the challenges for myself. I see that with other people. I see that even within my own children, is that the idea that they have to go down some certain path, right? That they have to be that one step to the next step. That it's all mapped out. And I haven't had that experience. You and I have had some conversations offline to realize that maybe that hasn't been exactly your experience either. And yeah, we're going to dive into the 17 most unuseful college degrees. And this list is kind of funny. We've got some things personally that we've got some input on that as well. So hang on as we get into the conversation. We've got some personal input about how maybe unuseful these degrees actually could be. So let me share my screen and let me see if we can't find. All right, Greg, you seeing that?
There we go. Yep.
All right. So folks, the idea on the Rich Mind Podcast is we're trying to get you to take action, take inspired action, going back to that PEAK acronym, that concept that we've come up with here on the Rich Mind Podcast. And part of that is action, inspired action. And with that is understanding that taking control of your own mind and your own money is super crucial if you want to be successful in life. So one thought I had earlier today, Greg, and maybe that's something we can dive into before we get into this actual article. And this is kind of a little bit of a curveball maybe for you, but maybe we should define what success is in our own minds, as far as maybe we should give some folks some context as far as, in my opinion, I think a lot of people get stuck with thinking that it's only a monetary thing. It's only when you get the stuff, when you get the money, when you get the whatever, the titles and all that, that's what you people, so I'm using that as a very broad term, right? So a lot of times in society, we think that that's what, brings success.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that real quick? Maybe let's touch on that for a second before we dive into these college degrees.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a great lead-in, because I think success is going to be individual for everybody. But I think, like you said, a lot of people, paint it with that one broad stroke of just money and finances and wealth and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that I've realized even in the past couple of years, that I was, chasing money and watching people on Facebook, closing deals and doing all these things. And I realized, there's a lot of ways to view success, and money is definitely one of them. But I think, like you said, it's the way a lot of people just drive it home, because it's what we see on social media and people talk about it a lot, especially in the entrepreneurial world. But, for me, success it's a lot of different areas of life. Having a loving marriage and relationship, that's a huge successful part of my life. Health is a successful part of my life, and being happy. I think that's the overall umbrella that I would put success under for me. Is if I'm living a happy life and I open up my eyes every day and I'm like, all right, cool, this is what you get to do today, then I'm happy, and that's a success for me. But for other people, it could be 3 different things, 5 different things. What are your thoughts about that, Randy?
Yeah, love that. So that's exactly where I wanted to take it. That's awesome. So the idea that it's not about money. So we can chase money. Money can be very emotional. Things can be very emotional. But let me just put myself in that part of the conversation, is that when I think about, like you said, my family, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children, my new relationship with my grandson, Rowan, I talk about him a lot here on the podcast. That to me is success. So also, I'll tie this in, is my time freedom. I have a lot of time freedom. Am I rich by certain people's classifications when it comes to money and net worth and wealth and all that good stuff? No, I'm always trying to aspire to accumulate new things, different things, but that's not my main motivation to do even what we're doing here this morning, Greg, to have the flexibility to wake up, like you said, be grateful for waking up, to hop on a quick call here today, to try to share a message, share an idea with folks. That to me, it's fun. it makes you excited, right? You wake up and you get to be excited. So yeah, time was probably the biggest factor for me when I jumped out and wanted to become an entrepreneur. I don't have a problem working hard. So let me caveat that as well. I don't have a problem working hard and working long, but I want to choose what those things are. And I think that was probably the biggest driver for me, is that I want to choose what I'm working on. Like yesterday, I was editing, producing, creating content for the podcast. And I actually enjoy doing it. It's actually a lot of fun. Is it tedious? Yeah. Do I love it every single day? No, not at all. But at the same time, the creative part comes out of me, and I enjoy that a lot. So yeah, I appreciate that. Any more thoughts on that before we dive in?
Yeah, I think like the key word that you said there was choice, right? Having that choice and choosing, because, a lot of us as adults, we do have that choice of what we want to do, how we want to do it, who we want to do it with. So just kind of keep that in mind as we have this conversation today. But choice is a key word right now.
Love it. So yeah, I'm always talking about that, folks. The choice, that's the most important piece. If you're anxiety, this has been my experience again. So, and that's where I'm just trying to relay that, how I feel about things. And that way, maybe it can resonate with you as well. But every time I've ever had anxiety or even depression, thinking about the past, right? It's because of lack of choice, in my opinion. I didn't have the choice to get up, to go to work or not go to work, or jump on a podcast, or whatever that might be, whether it's because of a financial situation or if it's because of the lack of personal development, the things that we're talking about here on the podcast. That's exactly where those things of lack showed up. You mentioned a few minutes ago too. I just want to tie a bow on that as well. The comparison game here at the end of 2024, you can go back to some of the last episodes that I did, and I talked about the trap of the comparison game and what I fall into that trap. A lot of times when I do fall into that trap, I'll get triggered. I'll get triggered by something or something. Like you'll see someone, it could be somebody you know, and they appear to have something that you either desire or you wish you had or something like that. And it's like that quickly sends me in a negative downward spiral of negativity in my own mind, thinking, man, I should do this and I could do this, and why don't I have that? It happens all the time. So yeah, I just want to make sure that people are aware that as well. So that as you're chasing this quote unquote success, to make sure you understand where you are today. You might be super successful in different categories that the mainstream out there aren't thinking that are popular. Like Greg said, health, like Greg said with his relationships. And those are the same things for myself. You might be super successful in those areas, right? And just because it isn't showing up on your balance sheet at this point, which that's exactly what we're going to try to work with and work on here on the Rich Mind podcast. Don't beat yourself up over something that may or may not be exactly true.
Yeah,
final thoughts on that?
No, well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. So perfect.
Cool, man. Well, let's dive into these 17. There are 17 most useless college degrees employers don't want today. So the reason why we brought this topic up was, so I've always had, I think I said this on the last episode, if not, might have been the one previous, that, I'm an overachiever when it comes to college. I didn't drop out once. I dropped out twice. I'm an overachiever. And so the reason is because I was going into things that it wasn't resonating with me at all. I'm not a school person. I never liked school, meaning I enjoyed going to school to have fun with my friends, the sports and activities after the fact. Yeah, that was great. Greg touched on that as far as the college experience, right? Even in high school, right? I had a good time running around with my friends, but as far as like sitting in class, I was always that guy with my head down, trying to make sure I wasn't drooling all over my desk, just because I did not want to be there. And so to go to school and go to college, that was probably a mistake, meaning it wasn't the best decision I could have made. And so, yeah, we want to go into some of these college degrees that maybe not, it says useless, it says useless here in the article, which is an interesting word. But at the same time, yeah, just trying to understand maybe where you are in your journey, whether you're about to start college, or maybe you've got children or somebody in your proximity is about to think about this transition of going to school or not. Any thoughts before we dive into these 17, Greg?
So the only thing I would say is before we dive into these ones is there is a difference between having a degree in the 17 that we're going to talk about and having the skill of the 17 that we're going to talk about, because the skill, I think you would agree with me, Randy, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but some of these, degrees, the skills that come out of that degree are fantastic. You're going to use them in relationships and business, but actually having the degree, so there are two different things between having the degree and the skill of what we're talking about.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, 100%. And we'll, put a pin in that one, man. We'll come back to that because I agree with that 100%. And that goes into a little bit more of the conversation today. So before we go into more of that, let's even just go through what these college degrees are. I will scroll through there. If you're checking us out on YouTube or on video, you can see this actual article itself. It's from financebuzz.com. And Greg actually found this article. It's actually a pretty good read. So I would highly recommend. We'll have a link to it in the show notes as well. So kudos to the author for this one here. But we won't read all of it, but we'll definitely go through the 17, the list of the 17 college degrees it's talking about. I'll start here with the top 3. Maybe then we'll just go back and forth. How's that sound?
Sure.
Awesome. So the first one, it says is creative writing. And we're just going to list these off and we'll have some color as far as to add some ideas and thoughts as we move on through after we get done reading the 17. The second one is a communications degree. The third is fashion design.
All right. And picking up number 4, 5, and 6. 4 is hospitality. 5 is education. And 6 is computer science.
7 is the culinary arts. 8 is music. 9 is film, video, and photographic arts.
All right. And number 10 is performing arts. 11, criminal justice. And 12, languages.
Which that's interesting. What languages? I never even knew you could actually go to a degree for languages. But I guess there must be, huh?
Yep.
Okay. 13, anthropology and archaeology. 14 is religious studies. 15 is exercise science. And the final two are tourism and advertising. So even that one, tourism, is that even a thing? That must be, right? I can't imagine someone thinking that they're going to go tourism as a degree, but that's just my opinion. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
So as we read through that, man, I've added a couple of the things I thought. Are there any of them that kind of stand out to you that are interesting based on this article? And this is, once again, these are just opinions, folks. This is the opinion of the author of this article. You may or may not disagree. And that's kind of the whole point. We're trying to bring up topics, bring up ideas that will just challenge your thinking a little bit. But yeah, anything off the top of your head, Greg, that's standing out as far as any of these top 17 that it's like, I mentioned a couple. Anything for you?
So I mean, personally, number 1 and 2, creative writing and communications, those are 2 of the things that I studied in my undergrad. So that was interesting, but I can, like we were talking about earlier, having the skill of creative writing and obviously the skill of communication, those skills are great. They're awesome to have, whether you're working in corporate or working as an entrepreneur. But as a degree, yeah, I would probably agree with the author that having a degree in creative writing, it's probably not going to get you very far unless you're 100% going to be a creative writer and that's the only thing you're going to do in life. Maybe that degree will help. I don't know 100%. But those are the first 2 that stuck out with me because those are the 2 that hang on my wall, communications and creative writing.
So you have 2 degrees or is it one, like a major and a minor? So remember, I dropped out twice. I'm going to ask questions that may sound stupid. So go ahead.
No, that's a good question. So I actually have a 1 degree and it was called an interdisciplinary degree where they take, instead of a major and a minor, they take 3 areas. And it's kind of like a third, and a third. So creative writing, communications, and business were my 3 that made up my 1 degree.
And what was that final degree called? You might have said it. Maybe I didn't catch it. What did you say that was called?
It's an interdisciplinary study. So it's a
Say
bachelor.
that 5 times fast. I'm just going to keep asking you, peppering you. Say that again one more time.
Yeah, no kidding, right? You want to kill my confidence? Yeah, ask me to say that 3 times fast.
That's funny. So interdisciplinary
studies.
And that was a college degree that you received.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you say you had another one as well? Do you have a separate?
No, that was the only undergrad degree that I have.
But it just had 3 different specific things you were studying within it.
Yep, exactly. Just like a combination, like a major and a minor, except a third, and a third.
Did you ever go get your master's? You made it sound like you said that was your undergrad. Did you go for a master's?
Yeah. So when I was working,
did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was working I don't want to say corporate job because it was a government job in Arizona. They actually paid for me to go to school. So I figured, why not? I'm going to get a free education. So I got basically a master's degree in project management. Okay.
Tell me about that. What does that even mean? So that's where, to me, it's like that just, what does that mean? Project management of what?
So you can do, there's a lot of project management areas that you can work in. For example, project management basically means managing one whole project, whatever that looks like. It could be rolling out a marketing campaign, ad campaign, and you're tracking who's doing what, when the timelines are, starting and ending. The timelines are going to overlap, obviously. Real estate development is probably an easier one to wrap your head around. You buy the land, then what's next? You're going to have, contractors come in, you're going to have a builder come in, you're going to do advertising to sell the property. So you're just basically managing a project from A to Z. And so it's a lot of time management, a lot of people management, spreadsheets, that kind of thing. But you can do it in virtually any industry.
Interesting. So as far as like I think this obviously was a few years ago for you, since you've done all this, was there things that you took away that you use still today, or is any of it, I mean, we were using the word useless in this conversation today. Was it most of it useless, part of it useless? What were your thoughts there?
So I'd say for the project management degree, that was actually really helpful, especially as an entrepreneur in real estate, just because, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you'll have more than one, venture going. So you really have to keep track of, okay, now I'm doing the podcast this morning. Maybe this afternoon, I am going to put some stuff on Facebook and create some content and do some other things. So you really have to, for me anyway, it really helped me with time management and making sure that I didn't drop the ball on one of the projects that I was working on if I was working on more than one. So project management definitely helped me stay organized in my entrepreneurial businesses. Yeah.
So before that, though, you don't feel like you were very organized with time management, things like that? I'm just trying to get, a little bit of some little context as far as kind of before and after. Any thoughts on that?
That's a hard question to answer because when I got that degree, I wasn't an entrepreneur. So I was basically working 9 to 5 for the government. So I don't know if I really had great time management skills before. I think I did, but I didn't really have a lot on my plate either. So it's hard to answer that question, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just curious at all. So you talked about skills earlier, that the skills are as important, if not more important, than the degree itself, right? The piece of paper that's hanging up on the wall. Yeah. Any thoughts on that as far as, so if folks are out there, we're talking to early stage or aspiring entrepreneurs, if they're wanting to make that step and they're trying to make a decision, do I go to school? Do I not go to school? Do I need a business degree? Do I not? What say you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'd say like communication, for example, I think that's a great skill to have. Obviously, in this day and age, as we're doing the podcast here, obviously we're communicating, but even just understanding the different layers of communications, especially in today's world where there's, online, there's social media, texting, there's all these different apps, obviously phone calls, everything kind of exploded. So having the skill of communication, of great communication skills, is something that I would highly recommend people go after and practice. And even myself, I wish I was a better orator, speaker, but doesn't stop me from being on a podcast here because I know having these conversations with you is going to fine tune those skills even more. Having a degree in communications, I don't know how much weight that really carries in the world, especially in 2025 right now. But yeah, that's the difference between, in my opinion, having a skill versus having the degree. I think there's a big differentiator there.
Well, there's so many ways to get skills these days, whether it's hands-on. I'm encouraging my children, and I've done this even for myself. If you want to learn how to do something, the easiest way to just jump in, right? Or go get a job within that industry, work side by side with somebody. Whether you're getting paid for that time or not, maybe that's a discussion for another time. But the idea is that to get the skills, that's what's valuable. It's not the piece of paper on the wall. And I think that that's the disconnect I think folks might have. That's been, once again, the conversations that I had. I mentioned also in the previous episode that I've got a friend that thinks that her daughter, as soon as she gets this college degree, I don't even know what the degree is in. It could be part of this useless list. I don't know. But if to think that just because she gets this degree that she's going to go out there and be able to conquer the world, that's the part I just want to push back on a little bit, is to think that that's the end all be all to becoming successful out here in the real world, because that has not been my experience. That's not been the experience of, I've got children in early 20s to late 20s. That's kind of their time frame. And so I'm kind of watching it firsthand in real time, what's valuable, what isn't. I see folks, friends of theirs, right, that have degrees, that have spent the time, spent the money to go get these college degrees, and they're absolutely not even using it. They're coming home. I'm thinking of a person right now, obviously I'm not in their finances, but I just know it was a private school, I believe, meaning it wasn't even a state-funded school. Anyways, I can only imagine what that amount was to go get this degree. And they've been home now for, I want to say, going on a year without a job per se in this area of expertise that they went to school for. And I think that they just landed a job, and the position that they took, I'm thinking, man, you could have done that, 5 years ago, started at the bottom somewhere, worked your way up into that type of a position, and probably about the same amount of time, earned some income at the same time, right? Learn the skills. You're talking about communication. Learn how to communicate, whether it's verbally, written, you name it, face to face, shaking hands. I mean, those are important personal skills that you can't get by sitting in a classroom. That's always just been my pushback when it comes to the college degrees themselves. Any thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I know when I, graduated college, I thought the same thing. I'm ready to conquer the world and, take on, all these jobs that I had in my head. And the first job out of college that I had was a telemarketer for an HVAC company in Tucson, Arizona. Yeah.
Serious? Telemarketing? Yeah. That was your first job out of college?
That was my first job. I love it. Yeah. So I graduated in 2002. I stayed in Tucson for another year, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? I was kind of not out of the college scene, but a lot of my college friends had, moved away or whatever. So yeah, I was a telemarketer, and I did okay with it and everything, because I didn't really know any better, but I didn't really enjoy it. And after my lease was up, I was like, all right, I'm going to move and do something else. But I had that same thing of I'm going to conquer the world. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm sitting here telemarketing. I don't even need a degree for this.
Focused on that communications piece, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's the one thing that popped out of it. But so I agree with you, especially if you know you want to be an entrepreneur and you know you don't want to go into corporate. Joining a mastermind, finding a coach, finding a mentor, even volunteering for somebody you want to work with. If it's, you want to be a real estate developer, you can find a real estate developer, I'm sure, that you can say, hey, I want to give you 10 hours a week. I'm not going to ask you for any money. I just want you to show me the ropes, and, I want to learn from you. You ask 10 people, I guarantee you 1 or 2 of them are probably going to say yes. And as long as you're showing up and giving them value, they're going to say yes. And then you're going to learn a lot.
Absolutely. And that's where I don't want this to come across as saying that education is bad, because that's part of, once again, that PEAK acronym is education, right? But it's self-education is the difference, right? It's not necessarily formal education. Jim Rohn, back in the day, I'll never forget the first time I ever heard him say this, right? He always talks about formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. And I'm like, I want that. Where do I sign up for that? Right? Then that's kind of what we're trying to get here to today, right, folks, is that it's not that you're not going to spend money to get educated, because you will. You're going to probably need to invest in some different courses. There are some online programs. You can get certifications. That's one thing within this article. He talks about going out and get specific certifications for a specific skill that you can acquire. Then you can then add into your resume, I guess, of things that you can offer into the marketplace. But as an entrepreneur, it's not about getting, whether I have a college degree. Greg's got a college degree with 3 different subjects I didn't even know were things, to be honest with you. And then, and I'm not making fun of Greg, because that's not the point. The idea is that it's just understand that self-education piece is probably one of the most undervalued, underlooked ideas out there in terms of when you step out into becoming an entrepreneur. That's been my experience. You mentioned that, Greg, as far as joining different masterminds or getting in groups with different people. The way that people are willing to help, offer some guidance, some assistance. You might even have an opportunity to go to work for different people. That's been interesting. Would come out of my mind, because it's like, I didn't realize that was even a thing. I would never have believed that there were other people willing to give of themselves, share some wisdom about their particular expertise with me in order to help me improve, right? That was an eye-opening experience for myself. So that's been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, that's honestly, where we met in a mastermind. And I remember my first mastermind meeting, it was December 2019. So right before COVID hit, 3-4 months later. And I remember hopping on a plane thinking, what am I doing? I'm hopping on a plane. I don't really know anybody in this room that I'm going to be hanging out with them for the weekend. And I went in with more of a lack mentality. And I, like you said, I was in that room and I was just amazed by people who were just, hey, here's my number. Give me a call if you ever need anything. They weren't asking me for, $10,000 to sign up for their program that they were doing. They were just like, hey, if you ever want to talk, let's connect and we can see what we can do. So it was very just eye-opening going from that lack to abundance. And like you said, just people are there to help you out and you're there to help other people out as well, right? That's the value that you're going to lead with as well. So I love masterminds. I know you do too. We can have a whole conversation around that.
Just conferences, masterminds. Stacy and I, my wife, we're going to be we're trying to find something that we can do a little bit different this year. We've been to some things like multiple times, and we want to try to find something a little different this year, get in a different room, meet different people. Mm-hmm. We've gotten to see and know a lot of the same people, which is great. We love them, but at the same time, we would love to try to, there again, expand that sphere of influence a little bit as far as trying to bring new people into our lives. And that's kind of what we're looking at here in 2025. So folks, if you have some different ideas out there, different conferences, different folks, we would love to hear that as well. You can email us at info@richmind.co and just let us know. Put conference maybe in the subject line, something like that. That would be helpful for us to understand what we're receiving, to know what the subject is that you're getting to us on. But yeah, I'm always looking for different experiences, different people. Some people you're going to love, right? Some days people are going to really want to follow. And I know sometimes it's kind of a dud. It just kind of depends on the experience, right? Whether or not you're in that current environment, which is exactly what we're trying to do here today on the Rich Mind podcast, is try to create an environment where you can come learn, tap into either or both of our experiences, and try to take away some actionable steps to try to get you out there further into this entrepreneurial journey that you may not have been able to do on your own. So are there some things now, Greg, as you reflect back, you went through the college experience. As I mentioned, I'm an overachiever. I dropped out twice. Is there any other things to share with the folks, some things to think about, some things that they can even do, maybe either in tandem with the college degree or instead of the college degree? What would you say to folks that are kind of maybe trying to make that decision?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say in tandem with, if you are going to go to college, that's obviously your decision. We're not saying it's 100% don't go to college. It's an individual choice. And like we're saying, it depends on what you want to do in life. One thing we didn't mention, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you pretty much have to go to college, right? There's no joining a mastermind and then all of a sudden you're a lawyer in the courtroom. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want some guy that's, just kind of reading a book and just trying to figure it out, operating on me in the operating room. Yeah. So definitely that's a very good point.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd say when you're in college, if you are going to go to college, look at some other, they call them side hustles or side projects or whatever you want to call them these days, but other things that interest you. And you don't have to do it full time, but you could maybe do it on the weekend. Or I remember as a college student, you had a lot of time in between classes if you're not working and that kind of thing. So just, go on YouTube and type in something that you're interested in and then start following people who, are successful in that area. And then see if that's something that you want to pursue or not. So you can kind of, go down the college route and get your degree if that's what you want to do, but also look at something that really interests you. So maybe when you do get out of college, you can kind of jump into that side hustle, turn it into a business or partner with somebody. There's many different ways you can go about that, but definitely, keep something on the side that is of interest to you. So you'll actually enjoy doing it and really look forward to diving into that material as well.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's exactly. So once again, I just revert back to myself, even with the Rich Mind podcast. I love creating this. When I first started it out, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about making money. It wasn't about any of that stuff. It was just a creative outlet. I wanted to develop the skills, the communication skills. We talked about communication skills today. I wanted to learn how to edit. I wanted to learn how to, you name it, as far as even design, right? Trying to come up with a brand. We talked about that an episode or two ago. We talked about creating the brand of the Rich Mind. I wanted to kind of just see if I could do those things based on the information, the self-education that I've done for myself, some of the investment that I've made. I wanted to see if I could do that. And so, that's where we're at today. And obviously we're trying to move forward. So yeah, I love everything you shared there, Greg. Any other final thoughts before we start to wrap this one up today? We definitely want to leave people encouraged, not discouraged at any ways. Like you said, we're not trying to tell you not to do anything, but at the same, just want you to think through the process, think through, it's an investment in my opinion, right? So if you're going to be spending, I don't care if it's $1,000 or hundreds of thousands, if you're spending that amount of money on education, you need to make sure you're going to get a return. The potential of return on that is X. If you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a return of a $25,000, $30,000 a year job that's going to take you until the end of your life to pay it back, I'm just saying, question that. That's probably not maybe necessarily a great investment of your time or your resources. That's basically the idea that I want to leave folks with today, is just think through it as an investment and the return on that investment, if it's going to be worth it or not. Any more thoughts for you before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, the last thing I would say, as far as, finding somebody to help coach you or mentor you, on that side of this conversation, always bring value. You can't lose with this approach. And I know, Randy, you're great at this, because after every conversation, and we've been friends for 2-3 years now, and you still ask me, hey, Greg, what can I do to help you? And I know it's almost like a habit for you. Like, you can't end a conversation without asking me that. And it's great, because sometimes I'm like, hey, I actually do need help with this or this, create this image in Canva because you're really good at that. Other times I'm good, and it's all, but I really appreciate you asking me that every single time, because you're always leading with value. You're not asking me for something right off the bat. You're always saying, how can I help you? So I think that's a valuable lesson to our listeners. When you enter a room, when you enter a conversation, how can I bring value? You cannot lose with that approach.
Appreciate you pointing that out. You have pointed that out to me in the past, and you're right, it has become a habit. So let me do that right now. Folks, how can we help you? How can we help you build this bridge? We talked about success here at the very beginning. What does success mean to you? For me, it was time freedom. I wanted my time freedom, meaning I wanted to be able to choose on a day-to-day basis what I was going to do, my activities, and that's what I've accomplished, right? I might not be as rich from a financial standpoint as others, and that's where I try to stay away from that comparison game. Talked about that as well today. But what is it that we can help you with? What is it that in my expertises, as far as the things that I can do, what can I help you with in those terms? Whether it's, some of the design, some of the branding. If you're ready to launch a podcast, I would love to try to help you think through that from a brainstorming standpoint. Love to try to help you with that. Greg, when it comes to business, real estate, he's a fantastic person when it comes to offering up his services and ideas and wisdom as well. And we would love to do that. So as it's going to be the same email address, so info@richmind.co. Just in the subject line, let's use question this time. Question is your subject. And just let us know, what questions do you have? What is it that we can do to help you, whether it's here on the podcast or even if it's online? We can respond, obviously. Greg or I can respond to your email. We can obviously point you in different directions. Just know that we're here to add as much value as we possibly can into your life, whether it's a course that we suggest or whether it's even just getting on a phone call and just having some dialogue back and forth. We definitely want to be here to do that with you and for you going forward. So, Greg, I think we're going to wrap this one up. It's good. The next episode is going to be a lot of fun. I was trying to think of the teaser as far as how I wanted to put this out there to you folks. That's why I'm so excited about it. But this is a subject that we're getting ready to get into that I think that it gets overlooked in terms of, we talked about success even in this episode here today. But when you're looking for success in the entrepreneurial world, I think that this subject doesn't get enough focus. Maybe let's just put it that way. It doesn't get enough focus. Thinking about it in terms of the way we're going to discuss it here on the Rich Mind podcast. So we're super excited to bring that to you on the next episode. So stay tuned, subscribe, make sure you're getting in communication with us as much as you possibly can here on the Rich Mind podcast. Head over to richmind.co, grab your 5-step guide from dead-end job to entrepreneurial freedom. That's the free guide we've got for you to get you on your path to discovering what the success is for you. So go out there, focus on being great. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and we will be back very soon talking about that one subject that I think that nobody is really covering out there in the podcast world or even in media, social media. And I can't wait to bring that to you. So go out there, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk very soon. Until then, bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Rich Mind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it with someone you know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Rich Mind podcast on your favorite platform and never miss an episode. Want to dive deeper into transforming your financial mindset? Visit our website to download your free 5-step guide titled From Dead-End Job to Entrepreneurial Freedom, designed to help you conquer your fears and start on your entrepreneurial path with confidence. One last thing. Don't ever forget that your mind is the first place where wealth is created. Keep dreaming big, take action, and together, let's build wealth, a legacy, and a life we love. Until next time.